As we approach Dawson City, often just called Dawson, large piles of rocks are seen in the valleys, later to discover they are the remains of the gold dredging days. Next is the mighty Yukon River, very impressive for a landlubber like me. At the top of the hill overlooking Dawson, we see the mouth of the famous Klondike River as it dumps into the Yukon River. Bev, with Dawson lying below the ridge line, shows the general terrain. Here is a sample of their beautiful, clean, well-displayed shops we found everywhere we went in Dawson. We will only show a few of their famous buildings and museums, an excellent source of history, but one can easily get overwhelmed with all the museums in Dawson. It takes a large quantity of fish to feed the sled dogs through the winter or on a long trip. This is a model of an Indian fish scoop. When one scoop is in the water, the fish are stopped, and then a person turns the scoop to dump the fish onto a trough, not shown, sliding them to the shore to be processed. Then the second scoop goes into the water to repeat the process. When large numbers of fish are swimming upstream to spawn, this trap is very efficient. We only seen one actual fish scoop, but it was damaged and not working. An elevated catch is used to store food to keep away from the bears and wolves alongside a sawed roof cabin displaying their luxuries. A sluice box demonstration shows the miners really earned their gold. It was a lot of hard work. A steam tractor, not often seen away from the big Kansas wheat fields. An ore wagon. And I don't know what that contraption is. And of course, every exhibit has to have a steam locomotive, but I like to see them. We visited one of the more wealthy houses still standing, but before we could go in, we had to put shoe covers on our shoes. This would not have pleased the old miners, as by this time Dawson was getting too civilized and most were moving to new gold discoveries. Really, the only thing that pressed Bev and I was the way the moose horns were made into a chair. Be careful when setting down. A beautiful sunset at 1 a.m. in Dawson. We had just left the midnight show at Diamond Tooth Gertie's, as it really never gets dark at night before the longest days of the year. I am walking down the stairs with a girl whose garter I now own. Bev has just been serenaded with the lead singer. This Model 88 Oliver tractor is like the one my dad owned on the ranch. Other mining equipment shows the diversity of equipment designed for gold mining. Dredge number 4 was a story in itself, as were other special places we visited. After 3 days in Dawson, it was time to continue on. We had visited several jewelry shops as I wanted to get Bev a fine gold wedding ring, and this shop had the best selection with the lowest prices. He made all the jewelry for the 2 shops, and on the way to the ferry, Bev selected a fine wedding band with gold nuggets, a gift a long time coming. Using a ferry to cross the Yukon with our big rig has been one big bone of contention for Bev for the last week, when she found out the ferry was the only way to get to the top of the World Highway, our next destination. As we pulled up to the ferry landing, there were 2 lanes, one for business or construction vehicles and one for tourists. Construction vehicles got priority, and the travel guide cautioned it may take some time before tourists will be able to cross. We planned for a whole day. We had not been there more than 10 minutes when across the river I saw one of the biggest gas fuel tanker trucks that I'd ever seen waiting for the ferry. It took me a few minutes to realize there was no other road except the top of the World Highway for him to get over there, and this road was hundreds of miles shorter than going around by the Alcan Highway. He had to be loaded with gas and fuel. This tanker was the only one on the ferry, and it took the ferry a little time to get to this shore. Several pictures follow as he drove off, and yes, he was fully loaded with fuel for Dawson City. I'm guessing the ferry rose out of the water a good 4 feet. I then turned to Bev and said, "I don't think you have anything to worry about." End of the contention. The trip was uneventful, other than leaving Dawson, where we had spent 3 lovely days in this wonderful town. The Canadian campsite was superb as others. A quiet day relaxing and watching the stern wheelers go up and down the river, getting ready for a new experience in driving the top of the world highway. Again, Bev had concerns from reading the milepost. Sometimes too much information causes problems.